this is like the perfect podcast because it's combining two things that I absolutely love, and I think they work really well together.
Hey team, welcome to the Kick It with Katie podcast. I'm your host, Katie Colliker, and welcome to episode 14. Today's episode is going to feature my interview with Kamden Hainsworth. And funny fact, we found out that we live in the same state. So she grew up in California and relocated for college to Utah, which is where I'm at. And so that was kind of funny that we found that out because we didn't know that about each other. Different cities, different counties, but still small town Utah, I guess, is some people like to say. Spring season is just starting for me and our family and the state. We had our fall season. We go indoor for winter here in Utah with all the snow and wet weather, but unfortunately it keeps snowing and raining, and so fields are still closed and it's going to be chaos. So I had my first games on Saturday, so shout out to my teams and love you guys. So if you're listening, anyway, so we kicked off our spring season on Saturday, and my other kids are going to be starting their season up. One has a game today, and then the rest of the season is just going to be chaos for the next, I don't know, like 10 weeks or 8 weeks or however long the season is. And then State Cup's going to be going on in there somewhere. I'm going to a tournament in Las Vegas this weekend. So it's chaos central. And then after spring season's over, there's tryouts and summer tournaments, and it's crazy. And I know most of you can relate. So let's get through this together. So I'm really excited about all this that's going on, and I'm excited for my spring season, for my teams and my kids, and for all of you. If you guys are going into your spring seasons, good luck and best of luck to you. If you have state tournaments, out-of-state tournaments, good luck in wherever you're competing at for your sport and for your kids. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, if you give us a 5-star review, as I always say, it helps out the show a lot, makes the show become more searchable and available to more people looking for content like this, and hopefully we can get that message out there for others to hear. And merch. I have finalized on some logos, and I'm going to be getting some stuff out there. So follow me on Instagram because I'm going to be doing a giveaway once those are made. So shout out to Lacey who's helping me with that. Anyway, so I'm going to be having some shirts and stickers available. So watch out for that stuff on my Instagram, Kick It with Katie Podcast, _ between all the words. Link is in the show notes. Also, if you have any questions for any guests, questions as a parent, player, whatever, you want advice about anything, shoot it my way and I will get you answers. I have amazing resources for soccer answers, so just let me know what questions you might have and I will get you answers however I can, because I'm here to help and make everybody's experiences more enjoyable and get you to where you want to go. If you're a player and if you're a parent and you have questions about what you should be doing for your kid for whatever situation, shoot me the question and I will ask somebody and get you some answers. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, shoot me an email at kickitwithkatiepod@gmail.com and we can set something up. I'm always looking for more guests. Along with the t-shirt giveaway, Reed Maltby, who was recently on the podcast, his book, The Spartan Mindset, is going to be available soon. And so we're going to be doing a giveaway with that as well. So make sure you're following me on Instagram so that you're aware and ready for when those giveaways go down so that you can participate and hopefully win. But enough of all of that. Here is my interview with Kamden Hainsworth. Hey guys, I have Kamden Hainsworth here, and she is going to be telling us about her story and journey through soccer. So, Kamden, why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh, thanks, Katie. So, yeah, I'm Kamden Hainsworth. I grew up in San Diego, California. I now currently live in Utah. And so I'm out here in the west of the
Oh,
U.S. Yeah. So
what part of Utah are you in?
I'm in Springville.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so I'm in South Jordan, but right now I'm in Salt Lake. But that's awesome. I didn't realize that you were like in state. So that's awesome.
That's really awesome. Well, it's two states that I think really love soccer and really really love the sport in general. And I remember, so I played for San Diego Spirit Crusaders was the club then, and I remember playing teams from Utah. So that was kind of fun to welcome other teams from Utah down to San Diego and play. So I got
Hmm.
started playing when I was 4 years old. My mom had me play a variety of different sports, and soccer was the one that stuck. It was between gymnastics and soccer when I got to sixth grade. I was very good at both and loved both. We chose soccer, and so I just did round off back tucks after I scored goals and stuff for a while.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, so
Did you do the flip throws too?
I
Like some girls
didn't.
do.
No, my friend Caitlin did. I played club soccer and then high school with her for a long time, and she had a massive, incredible flip throw in. Yeah, it was just, it was everything. It was a huge, huge part of my life growing up, and it has remained one of the most influential pieces of my life, even now as an adult. So, love talking about it.
Awesome. You played in. So tell me about your playing experience, navigating through the teams that you played for, and then into high school. How was that navigating from kind of the younger youth to the older youth?
Sure. So, I am 39 years old. So, I played most of my soccer during the 90s. High school, I graduated in 2001. So, at that time, you didn't start club until middle school. Now I feel like people are starting to play
Mm-hmm.
club a lot earlier. And so I
Mm-hmm.
started out, I played just rec, like I said, from 4 years old to about 11 years old. And then I started to try out for club teams. I just stuck with my same rec team, their club version of the rec team that I was playing with.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say I was probably the most fortunate because that is the team that I stayed on. We started at AAA, and then there was no Premier at the under 12 level then. And then I think we moved up to Premier maybe a few years later, when the age bracket started to actually have another team for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I played with them. I played with that team all throughout high school, all throughout middle school, all the way till the end, except for my senior year. And that's a story in and of itself. But I had the same coach.
Mm-hmm.
We probably had the same, at least half of the team remained pretty much the same for the entire time. And they became my family, and their parents became my family. I'm the oldest of 7 kids, and so we were all playing sports. So a lot of the time I was, spending the night in my friends' hotel rooms and for the different tournaments. They really did become an extension of my family, and my coach became one of the biggest mentors of my life. So I was pretty lucky. So I attended Helix High School, which is like same high school as Reggie Bush and Alex Smith, if you follow American
Oh,
football.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, Helix is a great school. I played varsity my freshman year. We took CIF that year. And then my senior year, there were 7 of us seniors on the varsity team, which was really fun. I got to be a captain my junior and senior year, and we took league, and we made it to the finals of CIF. So it was an incredible time to play
Awesome.
soccer. I mean, we were playing under like the mentorship of Mia Hamm and Julie Foudy and Brandy Chastain and all of
Mm-hmm.
the just
Mm-hmm. The
incredible,
greats.
the greats.
The
Yeah,
OGs.
and it was, posters plastered all over my bedroom of who I wanted to be and how I wanted to be. And I think that they in themselves were great role models of, powerful women. And they had to overcome a lot to be able to be seen. And that impacted me in soccer and outside soccer. So it's a little bit of my story.
After high school, did you decide to play college soccer? Before you mentioned that maybe you got an offer. So what was your decision to not play college, if there was like a conscious decision to not play?
Yeah, so I didn't play in college. I played a lot of intramurals to keep my heart happy, but I didn't play collegiate level. I attended BYU, Brigham Young University, and their team is really good. They're really, really incredible. My 7th grade year, I started dislocating my kneecap a lot. And by the time I graduated high school, I had done that, I think it was 4 different times. And it really put me out. And it also, I think, messed with my mojo, my head a little bit.
The mental aspect.
I think if I was me back then, knowing what I know as a mental health expert and advocate, I would have gotten little me into some sports PTSD therapy, because it really did. It messed with my mojo. Mesa College was the community college in San Diego. They asked me to come play for them, but I had already accepted. It was very funny. It was the next day I was going to BYU. I was going to be driving from California up to Utah. And I was like, thank you. I am on my way to college. So it was kind of funny. I'll never forget that. The recruiter calling on my parents' landline and saying, hey, we'd like you to come play for us. And I'm like, what? I am already at college practically. Like, it's a little late, buddy.
Packed up and on my way.
But it was great. A lot of my girlfriends on the soccer team, the high school team, and people I played against in club, they decided to stay local. I had a couple of friends that played at SDSU, and then others of them that played all over and did very, very well in their divisions, and were, had high honors for most goals scored. And I just feel like it was such a gift to be able to rub shoulders with some of the great collegiate athletes. I remember some of them coming to BYU and playing and going to the games and cheering more for them than I did for BYU, just because of the joy that I saw of them fulfilling their dreams and being able to be really, really good at it. So no, I didn't play. In fact, my senior year I didn't play club. I had so much going on my senior year. I think it was the best decision I made, even though it was very hard. I did play high school, and I played a little bit on the AAA team, but it just didn't require as much of me. They decided to play in a coast league at that point, where they were playing double games every single weekend. And I was also the show choir president at that point, and I was the vice president of the collegiate club, the CSF, I think is what it was called, California Scholarship Federation. I don't know why I say collegiate. Scholarship Federation at the time. And we had a really big senior projects going on, and it just wasn't working out. And so it was a really hard choice, but it was also a really good choice. So.
Yeah, I can definitely relate from my own personal story and making that decision, something that you've dedicated so much time in your life and you love it, but you have come back to, you said that you now coach. So who do you coach for? I believe you said it was your daughter's team, but let's get into a little bit of your coaching that you do.
Yeah, of course. So I have a 9-year-old, an 8-year-old, 6-year-old, and a 1-year-old, and they're all girls. And the 9 and 8-year-olds are on the same team. And we started off in fall. I finally, I had my baby and finally had some space because I run a couple businesses as well. And I was a little bit nervous to do it because I have, I think, a high expectation for soccer.
Right.
But what actually, yes, it's just like we can't help it. What motivated me is the season before I went to my daughter's game and I saw the coach that was coaching. And thank you to all the volunteer parent coaches that are out there. And I saw that it requires nothing to be a volunteer coach. And I couldn't watch. I just couldn't. Oh, there was no teaching. There was no structure. There was no skills. There was nothing. And bless his heart, this sweet coach had no idea what was going on. Even like leadership, there was no leadership. The girls, he's like, whatever you want. And I was like, literally, if this is the expectation of what it takes to be a coach, then sign me up. And the cool part is I ended up coaching with my best friend that we were roommates at BYU, played soccer together. She was a lacrosse player. And, fast forward 20 years, our daughters are on the same team together. And it was one of the most memorable experiences for me to coach that first year, because they're all little scrappy players. They're all third and fourth graders. Most of them had no idea how to play the sport. A couple of them had a little bit of an idea. And it was so rewarding to see them understand that their coaches loved them, that they loved the game, and that they didn't care about the winning so long as everyone was having a really good time. And I know that sounds very cliche, but we didn't win a game until our very last game of the season. And the celebration was immense. But these girls know positions now. They know positions, they know ball handling, they are more prepared this season. I get the same team back just with an additional 3 players, and they get it. And it was so cool to see them starting to really feel the field and see the field and rely upon each other, and to go from knowing nothing to go from that awareness of the game within just a few weeks, because there was a coach that actually cared and loved them and showed them that they were important. It was just so rewarding. It was amazing.
Yeah, and it's always interesting, like, because you as the coach, because I'm also a coach, when you take over a team and you're coaching, like, you question yourself and you're like, am I making any progress? Are they doing any good? Are they developing? Are they learning stuff? And then my husband gave an example over the weekend to a parent where he basically said, as a person who's there every day, you might not see it because you're watching it all the time. But if you see it at the beginning and you leave for 6 months and you come back, it'll be a totally stark difference. So I kind of get that, because when I started coaching as well, it was kind of like am I making a difference? He would be like, no, you're definitely making a difference because you're showing up and you're there. And like you said, there's structure and they kind of know what to expect. And so it's a gradual progression. And so it's always awesome to hear these stories of people that are taking on the coaching role at, maybe for their first time, and the hesitancy of it, and then growing to love it because you love the girls or the players, whoever you're coaching. And, it's awesome.
Yeah, it is
so
awesome.
do you coach for a specific club, or is it just
nope, just city, just Springville City? Yeah, we're at the very, very beginning of it all. And my daughter, my oldest, is very, very hesitant. She has generalized anxiety, she has severe ADHD, and with the other team, it was like pulling teeth to get her there, because she didn't feel seen, she didn't feel loved, she didn't feel any of that. I was afraid that, like, her understanding of the sport would be tainted by that. But after this past season, she's really taken to it, and they're really excited because they're excited to see their friends and these people that they've grown with as well. So it's cool.
Yeah, and it's nice to be able to be that coach that a player with maybe that anxiety can trust. I have a player whose parents have told me, she's kind of developed this anxiety of things. And so I always make sure that she's comfortable. I'm not going to force her and get mad at her if she doesn't come over and participate in something. I'm like, as long as I can get her there, eventually, it'll be fine. So, and that's something that we kind of worked on, and it's gotten way better, because she trusts me. And so that's always nice to be able to build that foundation of trust with your players. So then let's go into more of you're also an ADHD coach, or what does that entail?
Yeah, let me lead into that a little bit. So
okay.
This is like the perfect podcast because it's combining two things that I absolutely love, and I think they work really well together. when I was playing club, my coach's name was Howie Havard, and he has since passed away from ALS. He died, I think, even before his 50th birthday. He was very young. It was really crazy to see this man that was probably like late 20s when I first met him, see him grow as a coach and an individual and everything, pass away his whole life. But something that he really did teach me, because of the way he treated me, was he saw my strengths. I was never the fastest player. In fact, I was way, way behind on any sprints that we did at the end of practice ever. Like, I was never first. I wasn't even close to first. Way behind. But he kept me on that team. He kept inviting me back. I kept making the team year in and year out because he saw that I had incredible touch, that I was a leader, that I played the field very well, that I was extremely accurate. And he saw my value even though I had weaknesses and challenges. And as an ADHD coach, that is precisely what I do. And his teaching and his acceptance and his love for me as a player, I honestly think has stuck with me more than anything, right next to my parents' love for me. Because he had every opportunity to just like flick me out of the bench, go find somebody that was faster. You know, speed is really important in soccer, but he didn't.
Right.
And he didn't. And with ADHD, as an ADHD coach, I work with adults, I work with teenagers, I work with parents, I work with entrepreneurs. What we are trying to do is we're trying to leverage the strengths that we have. ADHD is a challenge. It's a neurodevelopmental disorder. It's underdevelopment of the frontal lobe of the brain. Those are all the things that help us to be self-aware. And executive functions are really hard, like getting things done, household chores, organization, time blindness, impulsivity, all of these things we struggle with. And when I say struggle with, it's like our brain did not develop in those areas. We lack those skills. So as an ADHD coach, I help people develop those skills, and I help them get more clear on where their challenge areas are. And then we leverage their strengths. We help them really use their strengths to strengthen their weaknesses, and to not have an expectation that they're going to be the fastest sprinter on the field, because probably that's never going to be the case. I don't have the body type, and I have the same kind of legs, and I have the same kind of muscles as the other girls on the field. And the same thing as an ADHD coach, our brains work differently. They just do. And so helping people gain that acceptance, and then also see where they are absolutely vital to their own life, how they can show up for their own life, has been super helpful.
Do you have any advice specifically for maybe currently parents of players who have ADHD? Any just, I guess, general guidance? Because I know that every person is different, and you know, so every case is different, every player is different, everybody's different. And so is there any sort of, I guess you could say, general advice that you could give about for parents of current players?
Yeah, sure, of course. I actually graduated in elementary education as well, so I was a 6th grade teacher for a number of years, and really fun for me. It was a very high Latino population, so most of the time I got to go out and play soccer with my students during recess, which was like another dream come true for me. And that's where I was introduced to ADHD, was as a 6th grade teacher. So I think the first thing why I bring that up is that we have a very narrow view of what ADHD looks like. We often think of young white boys that are bouncing off the walls, that can't stay in their seat in the classroom. And the first thing that a parent with ADHD, I would say, needs to understand is that ADHD impacts many, many, many aspects of life, like all aspects of life. And it's not so simple to say it's just hyperactive. So you can follow me on Instagram, and then you get lots of education about ADHD. But in terms of like your soccer players, in terms of your kiddos that have ADHD, it's going to be the world to them, for them to feel seen, for them to know that you see that this is a struggle for them, and to have that compassion for them. Many people will say ADHD, like, you're just making excuses. If we can change the word from excuse to explanation as to why things are happening, it helps everyone involved. So let's say your kiddo, and I actually talk about this on my podcast. I talk about soccer a lot because it's so relatable. I wasn't diagnosed until I was 36 years old. So I think back to me like trying to pack for a tournament and having dirty socks still in my bag. And we have, our white socks on instead of our red. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people are going to see the mud on my dirty socks. And I was responsible for my own laundry at that point. And so I remember during warm up going and slide tackling on purpose so it would look like that I just got the dirt on my socks that day.
Oh.
Yeah. And so we find ways, but there's a lot of shame surrounding like, I'm 16 years old. How did I forget to wash my socks again? I remembered my uniform, I remember my shorts and my shirt, but how did I forget to do this again? We're here again. I have to have this situation again. And now as an ADHD coach, I see that and I'm like, okay, if my mom knew what I know now, but nobody knew in the 90s, hardly anyone knew about ADHD the way we do now, it would be, okay, we need to buy an additional pair of socks, always. We need to have those on hand. And we need to put a reminder up somewhere that's a visual reminder that says, jersey, shorts, socks, shin guards, and whatever else, so that I make sure that list gets washed for my tournament. Now that's off the field, obviously, but that compassion and understanding is a big deal. Once somebody feels loved, then their ability to learn and to be a sponge and take in information is so much higher. If they're constantly on the defensive, constantly doing something wrong, not as quick, they're not picking up the plays as fast, they're whatever it might be that they're struggling with, they shut off and the learning stops then. So like I said, there's so many things I could talk about, but that full acceptance as an explanation, not an excuse. They're not being lazy. They're probably in frozen mode because they're in overwhelm. All of that can be really helped by compassion and love and encouragement. It's a good place to start.
And then on another note, what would you say to maybe coaches or other parents on the team who maybe there's a player? I'm sure that every team at least has one player that probably has ADD or ADHD. What kind of tips or advice would you give to those people who maybe aren't the actual parent of the player, but just so that they know what kind of, I don't want to say expectation, but what advice could you give to maybe a coach about maybe, I don't know if something like changing the way that you're executing an exercise so that other people can, what kind of advice would you give maybe a coach or other parents on the team to kind of help guide them?
Oh yeah, that's great. So many athletes have ADHD, and you said ADHD and ADD. Now it's just called ADHD hyperactive or ADHD inattentive. And inattentive is kind of similar to the ADD that used to happen. And there's also a combined type. So there's 3 different types. So understanding which type they are or where their challenge areas are first is going to be very helpful. The first thing that came to my mind is whenever we're doing drills that require a long line, like number one, that's not good practice in general. Like let's keep the kids moving, right? But if there's some way we could do a rotation or cut things up and cut the team into half, because whenever someone is idle with ADHD, they're probably going to find something else more exciting. Or they're going to be so excited to do the drill, but they have to wait, that they're going to get themselves in trouble because they're trying to stimulate themselves. They're trying to keep that enthusiasm, keep that dopamine high. When we understand that ADHD is many, many things, but it's also a lack of neurotransmitters, which cause us to feel excited, which cause us to feel motivated, have energy, have clarity of thought. If we can understand that a lot of the time in life, they're very understimulated. And so they're trying to look for other things to stimulate them so that they feel normal in their body. They don't feel sleepy and bored. They're just trying to get to a normal level. Most all neurotypicals, we live at that normal level, right? And bless their hearts, they're not getting that. So does that mean that they're allowed to always have a ball at their feet, right? If it's a throw-in drill, like in the line, are they allowed to have a ball at their feet in order to, and give them a specific drill to work on instead of having to wait in line for throw-ins? Or does this mean that, when you're down in I don't know what you would call it, but like we'd be in front of my coach and he was giving us instructions. A lot of the time when he was just talking to me, it would be one in one ear and out the other, and I'd look like this. Like I looked very engaged. For people not being able to see, like I was still looked engaged, but I didn't know what the heck he was talking about. And what did help is seeing the field. So living the experience, moving my body versus on just like words or on a board. So have patience with that. Once ADHDers really struggle with short-term memory, and we struggle with working memory, which means using things from the past to help us in the present. But once we do make that connection, it is fire. We are incredible at it. Once something does click, it just takes a little bit longer to click, but once it does click, we are so good at it. Like really, really good. Like freaky, really good. And so just being patient with that as well, and trusting that if you see the potential in a player and you see that they're willing to be coached, they're willing to be coachable, that giving them that time, it's going to pay off in the long run. There's so many things, Katie. I don't know,
I'm sure.
if that was helpful. Sometimes there's anger. I could speak to that a little bit. I'm just thinking like, what would it look like on the soccer field? Frustration tolerance. Yeah, frustration tolerance is really, really low. So once again, anything that has to do with regulation is very difficult. That's not a developed skill. It's not a developed part of our brain. So when we think of emotional regulation, if they're very frustrated because they can't get a skill down, or I remember I could not get the ball off the ground until I was like 14 or 15 to cross the ball in the air. Like my body was not operating. Now ask me to do it at 36 and I haven't played soccer for 15 years. It's going to be it's going to be a perfect cross. Like I can still do it because we had the patience. So when they're having what it looks like emotional breakdown or an outburst or frustration, a lot of the time that is because of their emotional dysregulation. And finding appropriate ways to ground and holding them to a high expectation, but also allowing them some time to go cool off with tools. So that might sound like, I want you to go do 4 box breaths, if you know what box breathing is. Or I want you to go over there. Okay, so you breathe in for 4 seconds. You hold it for 4 seconds, blow it out for 4 seconds, and then hold your breath again for 4 seconds. Okay? So you do that over and over until your heart rate has lowered and that activation in your body is no longer so intense. Giving them actual tools to help them ground, or learning that maybe with their parents, is helpful. Sometimes they just need to go blow off some steam, but like making that a part of, you have an expectation, you hold them to the expectation. We don't talk down to each other on this team. Like that's the expectation, but also with compassion. I can see you're having really big emotions and I understand that. So go ahead and take 5 minutes, go do some high knees, go do some foundational work with the ball, take some breaths, and I'm excited to have you back in 3 minutes. So then it's not like they want to come back, and they don't have that shame surrounding it. Like, it's okay. Emotions are okay. We just need to learn how to take control of them. So once again, it's that compassion element.
Yeah, we actually, when you were starting to talk about that, just recently we were in a tournament in Las Vegas, and a player went with another family, and the person that he went with forgot to give him his medication, and so I didn't find out until after the game, but The parent that had taken him had said, if you notice that he was acting this way, and he was yelling a lot at the players on the team and just getting really kind of hyped up, and I guess you could say angry in a way, because he was frustrated with what was going on, and he didn't have that medication to, I would assume, help regulate that. And so that's kind of how he was lashing out. And I wasn't coaching, but the coach didn't punish him for behaving that way. We found out, this is what happened, and it was a frustrating game altogether. And so we kind of understood the frustration.
It makes sense.
It made more sense why he was a little bit more than everybody else frustrated with the game. And so, we had that compassion, and, we were like, oh, okay, that explains it. And, he's a kid, he's 11. So it's not like I'm going to be expecting him to be anything, at that age. I'm not putting high expectations on his behavior to be a certain way. And so, but that just kind of reminded me of that situation that was pretty recent.
That's a beautiful example of it. And some families won't choose to medicate, but there's the power of medication. You can see it right there. And if you choose to not medicate, then I would say absolutely choose to have some tools. Teach them some tools. If you're not going to give them a medication tool, I always say you need a pill and a skill. You have to know both anyway. But if the pill is not part of your guys' plan, total respect to you. Make sure that you're giving them tools in their toolbox, because feeling out of control in your own body, not fun and not ideal. None of us like that. Right. There was just one last thing that, as you were talking, that came up to me, that ADHDers, we hate structure, but our body craves it. And so if you can find a way, coaches, if you can find a way, parents, to create some kind of structure, but then have loose expectations within that structure, it makes it a lot easier. So for example, we have to do conditioning work. So if you're going to do conditioning work, you can either go to the gym with me and run on the treadmill a mile, or you can do a half-hour spin class with me, or you can run lines downstairs in the gym, right? And so it gives them some flexibility and choice, and all the while it's still getting the value of conditioning. And, the same thing is, we were going to work on ball work. So you can choose right now, either you're going to work on your traps, or your dribbling, or your juggling. So just whatever it might be in that framework, we are still getting the value, the result that we want within a structure, but having some choice and flexibility within it. It's good parenting in general, but for an ADHD brain, it's very, very helpful.
Yeah, that's definitely some great advice for anybody, even if maybe your kid doesn't have ADHD. I know I have a set of twins where sometimes I have to give them those options where I'm like, okay, well, you can either do this or this or this, and make your decision. So I think that could translate over to a lot of different aspects of people's lives, not just people with ADHD. And that's also just
advocating for ADHDers. Advocating for ADHDers in your home or wherever you're at, it helps all the world go around better, because we're always more intentional. You look at where the challenge area is, you set up a plan that makes sense, it's tailored for your family's needs. It's always going to be better. It's always going to be a better choice.
Yeah, definitely. So what is your podcast? Because you mentioned that you have a podcast. So what's your podcast called, so people can look for that also, to if they want to hear more?
Yeah, great. It's a general ADHD podcast where I talk about my life as an ADHDer. So there's some education, there's some experiences, there's some insight about what I talk about with my clients as a coach. It's called The Busy Brained Saint. Then you can also, if you just want more general ADHD education, you're going to want to go to Kamden with a K _ADHD on Instagram.
Awesome. And I will have these all linked in the show notes for the episode. Is there anything else that you want to add? Any advice or anything that you want to end with?
I just think that it's giving kids, giving teens the opportunity to play this sport in a team is just a gift. We can give a lot of different kinds of gifts in our life, and we can show up in a lot of different ways. But if we can remember why we're doing it, why we started coaching in the first place, or why we enrolled our kids in the first place, and really stick close to that value, it makes the actions and the decisions that we make for them so much more aligned in our life. And instead of working against each other, it really, really helps us to work together toward a common goal. And that's hard sometimes. We lose sight of that because life is complex. I have seen that both on the soccer field and as an ADHD coach, and of course as a mother to my kiddos and a teacher. Just coming back to the roots, coming back to the whole purpose. What was the intention? What's the actual value that we want out of what we're doing? And helps ground us and center us on what's most important.
Thank you so much for the interview. We had a lot of great advice for our listeners. If you guys have any follow-up questions for Kamden, you can reach out to me or you can reach out to her directly. But if you have any other questions for your soccer player and you want us to do a follow-up, maybe we could do a follow-up. If you guys have your own questions that you want her to answer for the podcast, that would be awesome as well. But you can definitely reach out to her if you want more information, or go listen to her podcast and follow her on Instagram for more information on what she has to offer for you guys. But this has been great. So thank you so much, Kamden.
So fun. Thanks for having me. It's been perfect.
Thank you, Kamden, for your interview and spending time with us. I'm sure we'll talk in the future because I'm sure we'll get some questions and we'll want to have some follow-up. Thank you again for coming on. It was great to talk to you and hear about your experiences. I know you're a wealth of knowledge and experience, so thank you so much for coming on and sharing your information that you have with us. So please make sure to follow Kamden on Instagram and follow her podcast. I will have her information in the show notes as well, so make sure you follow her. If you have any further questions or anything like that, again, reach out to me and I can follow up with her and get your questions answered. But she was a wealth of knowledge today, and hopefully you guys learned some stuff, because I certainly did, and I'm hoping to take what she shared with me and with all of you into my coaching and parenting and just all aspects. So it's all great information to know, and thank you for sharing that with us, Kamden, and good luck to you on your podcast and in your coaching endeavor. Good luck with your girls in your spring season. So I'm excited to hear how that goes for you, because I know you were excited about starting that spring season with them. So I can't wait to hear and follow up with you. But you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for listening. Give me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. Share the podcast. Please share it with somebody so that we can get the word out there. Like I've said before, it's steadily growing, and I love to see that. So if you're new today, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, and I love where this is going. And thanks for kicking it with me, and have a great day. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at kickitwithkatie_podcast _ between all the words. You can reach out to me with questions at kickitwithkatiepod@gmail.com. I also have a feature with SpeakPipe where you can leave me your own voicemail message if you want to be featured on the podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.